Welcome to the Mutiny Report. I'm Fletcher Christian. This is what it feels like to be alive right now. The government opens the vault, and somehow the victims are the one who end up exposed. Last week, the Department of Justice dropped a massive Epstein-related release, over 3 million pages, in the latest tranche, and about 3.5 million pages total released under something called the Epstein Files Transparency Act. That's the headline they want. Look, transparency. The lived reality, the human costs, was much uglier. Because after the dump went public, victims' attorneys started raising the alarm. Names and identifying details of survivors were appearing unredacted. And then the DOJ started pulling down thousands of items to fix it. A federal judge in Manhattan canceled the hearing because the DOJ and victims' lawyers reached an agreement to better protect identities. Nearly 100 women affected, according to the reporting. Let that sink in. The government's big transparency moment about a predator who trafficked girls turns into girls getting exposed again. Meanwhile, the people with power, the orbiting important folks, the men who were in rooms and on planes and at parties and in the phone logs and in the social circles, the public sees heavy redactions, and survivors advocates are saying, why are perpetrators' names getting hidden while survivors are getting left out in the fucking cold? And here's where it gets messy. Because the DOJ's official line is basically, no, don't worry. Notable individuals and politicians were not redacted. Bullshit. That's their claim in the DOJ press release. But survivors' lawyers and transparency advocates say the opposite is happening. Ham-fisted reactions, missed deadlines, and a process that protects the machine while survivors catch the shrapnel. So which is it? Seriously, what fucking world are we living in? Here's what I'm telling you. If the government can't redact victims correctly, but can redact like a laser when it's convenient, then we don't have transparency, we have fucking theater. And it's not a small point. It's the whole fucking point. Because the United States of America, the same country that can track your phone, your purchases, your location, your face on a camera in a crowd. But somehow, when it's time to protect survivors of one of the most notorious sex trafficking operations in modern memory, the system oopsies the redactions. No, that's not an oops. That is the shape of American politics and power and the elite in this country. Now let's talk about the part nobody likes to say out loud, where some people are. Two systems of justice. That's what we have in this country. One for the protected class, the elite, and the powerful, and one for everybody else. Because look at the language these same officials use when they're talking about you. When they're talking about the street level world, when they're talking about immigrants, protests, petty crimes, public order, the whole law and order sermon. Case in point, Attorney General Pam Bondi has publicly pushed the line, no one is above the law, right? And you hear that phrase everywhere. It's the slogan they slap on the hood of the machine right before it rolls over somebody. But then you see the Epstein release and you realize that phrase is selective as fuck. Because in Epstein world, no one is above the law turns into deadlines missed for disclosure, millions of pages labeled potentially responsive, and then only about half actually released. There's 6 million of these documents. According to advocates and reporting, survivors' names are exposed while the system insists it's being careful. This is what looks like when the law is a fence. For regular folks like you and me, that fence is fucking electrified. Barbed wire, concertina, everything. For the elites, it's decorative. It's like a little garden fence that you just open the door to get to the pool. And in the middle of that hypocrisy, there's a detail that makes my fucking skin crawl. A Guardian live report notes a document, and all these references are in the description, notes a document from an email signed Love Melania to Ghislaine Maxwell. You know who I'm talking about. One more reminder of how close Epstein's circle ran in the highest levels of status and celebrity. Now, important. Seeing a name in a file doesn't actually prove wrongdoing. That's true, and it matters. However, big document dumps contain noise, tips, unverified claims, all that bullshit. That's fine, whatever. If you don't have if you're just mentioned in there like Jon Stewart, who gives a fuck? That doesn't excuse the broader problem. Because the question isn't who's in the documents. The question is, why does accountability evaporate when it gets near money and power? Why is that? It's like our justice system, our legal system. If you got money, you can hire an attorney. Oh, you'll be fine, dude. Don't worry about it. If you're poor and you can't file an attorney, the system will fuck you. Plain and simple. Why do we get a tsunami of paper but no clear roadmap of prosecutions? Why does the system keep producing administrative closure instead of moral closure? And when survivors and advocates ask, where are the files about Epstein's protection, about his immunity, about who stopped investigations, that's not conspiracy talk. That's a transparency question, a system question. Because this wasn't just one fucking predator. This was a network for real. And our president was involved. I don't care if you don't believe that or not, but he's in there. And a network doesn't survive without enablers, fixers, people who make calls, people who lose paperwork, people who look away, people who turn crimes into private inconveniences. So it's complete bullshit that nobody else is being prosecuted. So when people say two systems of justice, they're not just being dramatic. They're describing the operating system, the OS of the American system. Now, I want to widen the lens here a little bit because this is where the hypocrisy becomes almost comedic if it wasn't ruining real lives. On the immigration enforcement side of the government, you got officials who love the language of consequence. You've got ICE leadership in the news, including Todd Lyons, douchebag Lyons, as acting director of ICE, described recently by Reuters in a context of court orders and detention controversies. And in public messaging, the vibe is always the same. Obey or suffer. Break the rules and pay. No exceptions. But watch how that logic collapses when the rule breakers wear suits and fly private and donate to campaigns and host parties behind gates with a lot of baby oil, probably. For undocumented people, the system is immediate. It's blunt, it's physical, it's the knock, the cuffs, the detention pipeline. Or if you're American, protesting it, you just get murdered. For the elites tangled up in an abuse ecosystem, it's paper, it's procedure, it's ongoing review, it's redacted for privacy, it's unverified, it's not responsive. They got money, they can make things last for litigation for decades. And yes, privacy matters. Victims must be protected, full stop. But here's the sickness. The system's definition of privacy keeps tilting upward. Survivors' names get exposed, then fixed. Perpetrators' names get blurred, then explained, right? And everyone in the middle is told to accept this is just how justice works. This is not justice, my friends. No, this is how fucking power works. This is how the elite work. This is how those people who do not give a shit about any of us decide to live. Do whatever the fuck they want. They got the money to buy themselves out of anything. And that's why the Epstein story never dies. Not because people love scandal, because it's a perfect x-ray of the American hierarchy. You want the harsh truth? Epstein was not an anomaly. Epstein was the system that can protect predators for decades, then fumble the one job that matters, protecting the survivors. It's not broken. It's doing what it was built to do, protect itself. So what do we do with this? First, stop letting document dumps substitute for accountability. Transparency without consequences is just an information flood that exhausts the public and buries the story under its own weight. Second, demand an actual standard. Survivors first redaction protocols that don't depend on victims discovering that they've been exposed. Independent oversight, right? When the government is both the releaser and the judge of what's responsive. And a clear explanation, public documented, of what was withheld and why. Beyond trust us. Third, stop swallowing the slogan, nobody is above the law, because it's complete fucking bullshit. If nobody is above the law, then prove it. In the zip codes where the donors live, not just in the neighborhoods where the cameras are. Because right now, the message is unmistakable. If you're powerless, you get consequences. If you're connected, you get redactions. You get lifted out of it. Nothing happened. That's not justice. That's a caste system with better PR. And I'll end it like this. The victims' names should never be the price of transparency. The survivors should not have to fight the government again to stay safe. And the people who built careers on law and order shouldn't be allowed to use that phrase as a weapon against the poor while it becomes a blanket for the powerful. Stay loud, stay human, and for fuck's sake, stay mutinous. Mutiny out.